all eyes on the jungle as we move ourselves forward into picks and bans. Here for game number 1, Vitality and Schalke. First ban coming out, and it's the Golden Chicken.
No surprise there. Azir, very powerful in the mid lane, especially in the hands of Fox, who in the past has had some very impressive games on that Azir, has been one of his go-to mid laners, and the fact that Vitality are going to take that away, along with Schalke taking away the Vladimir, means that right now both teams pretty much sticking to standard stuff. Yeah, there's no reason to really diverge from that formula, especially not early on in the game. An Ashe ban, though, comes in. That's an interesting one versus Vitality. Although she has been really, really popular for a lot of players lately, even though they're still your staple picks in the AD carry role, Ezreal, Caitlyn, the like. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it has been one of Police's best performing AD carries. He's currently 3 for 3 with that Ashe right now. And I think Schalke just want to try and get Police off of a comfort AD carry, because we do know that after hearing Kasing in an interview recently that the synergy isn't quite there yet. Yeah. So if they can just try and disrupt the balance in the bottom lane by taking Police away from things that he's comfortable on, perhaps they can see an advantage on the bottom lane. Yeah, and this was kind of a sentiment that not only did Kasing talk about, we heard it from Nukeduck as well. And this is a worrying trend for a team that is, trying to reclaim their reputation. They've only managed to get one full win in any one of their series. It's been Thai City for them. And, a team like Schalke that's kind of surging, it's going to be a tough call here as the last bans come in. It's Olaf on the blue side, and that is a quick pickup on the Nidalee. So Shook is back in a good old happy place. Yes, he certainly is. He knows how to play this Nidalee. We already saw in our first series of the day how impactful that Nidalee can be if played as aggressively as it was by Trashy. And Shook is definitely known for his aggression. Sometimes over-aggression. We'll have to see during the downtime if he's been able to temper that aggression. Oh yeah, so the Elise pickup's kind of a no-brainer here. They didn't have to take it on this rotation, but they do take it along with the Caitlyn for Mr. Rallis. So I'll definitely be, if they get standard lanes, they'll definitely be looking for some early action down there to snowball that one ahead. Question is, what do they answer for Police's side? So looks like Gilius gonna be going back to this Elise, and it is one of his more popular junglers alongside with the Gragas, and he definitely has had some good performances with it. It enables him to have that early pressure down. It also offers that pick potential. And when you think about how you combine it with the traps, you actually start to build this chain CC comp that you're getting from Schalke. Yeah, and it's not just about the ganks though too, right? Gilius has been very outspoken about how he wants to go into the other jungler's jungle and pretty much ruin their day. If he can do that against Shook, who's just coming back into the LCS now, that can put Vitality on tilt for minute 1. And it's interesting that you mentioned that, because last week, Deficio mentioned that Gilius sometimes tries a little bit too hard to carry, and that's very detrimental for the lineup of Schalke, who, to be fair to them, as long as they have standard lanes and they have a normal laning phase, things tend to go well. Steve has such a massive impact in the top. Fox is a surprisingly strong mid laner in Europe, and Rallis, as we already mentioned, is a silent carry that's just constantly doing work on the backside. So as long as Gilius doesn't try too hard and throws away a potential lead for Schalke, I can see them having great success up against Vitality. Well, we'll have to see if we do end up getting those standard lanes. The Braum, the Sivir combo comes out. Sivir, obviously a bit more popular in a couple previous weeks, but she was one of our most picked or banned champions early on in the split, and now she's kind of fallen off a bit in win rate. Still, it does give you a chance to group and push. Yeah, we did see earlier on in that really cool infographic that Sivir is still one of the more popular AD carries, but has not had as much success as the Ashe, for example, which is still great for setting up utility. Synergizes very nicely with the Nidalee in particular, because what Nidalee lacks in engage, Sivir makes up for. It makes it so much easier for the Braum to get on the front line, for Nidalee to dive onto the back line, and it also helps setting up for those picks if you find someone out of position. So really like that coming out from Vitality. Yeah, very, very true. Now, one thing we haven't really touched on is where is those top laners? We talked about Cabo and Steve. We want to see what they're going to be on, but they're saving it for last already. Unless we send the Swain up top. It's always a possibility, but I just don't think so at the moment, since that's locked in for Fox for the time being. They've got the double teleport setup. Could change, of course, before the pick and ban phase is over. I love Swain, Pyra. One of my favorite mid laners. Super beefy, sucks at engaging, but he is almost impossible to kill once you complete that Rod of Ages. And he's for me, he's a fun champion. For a lot of people, he's not, because there's very few mechanics relating to him. But he's just this giant bird that turns into a real menace in these mid-game fights where it becomes impossible to get him off you. once he completes that Rylai's.
So how is he compared to, you know, the pre-nerf Swain, really?
He's pretty much the same. I
Really?
mean, he took a lot of hits to the healing on his ultimate, but I mean, it still is perfectly enough for the sustain. And Swain, I still think, very powerful mid laner. And going up against the Ryze, he should be relatively okay during the laning phase, but you always have to be mindful of how well that Ryze scales into the late game.
Right, all right. But let's dip away from those mid laners and talk about the top, because we finally get the answer to the question, what is Cabochard going to play? He picks up the Aurelia, which has been exploding in popularity in the top lane here. And I would not be surprised to see the Gnar on the opposite end. It does give them a nice round out, a lot of situational tankiness.
In my eyes, Shen would be very good here. We've already seen how impactful it can be. Unicorns of Blood made the global pressure work phenomenally earlier on today. And the problem with Gnar is there are so many windows for the Aurelia to abuse it during the laning phase that it is such a risky pick, especially into Cabo, who is basically saying, yo, look, Shook is back. He is a jungler that spent so much time sitting in the top lane getting me ahead. If you're going to run something risky, I'm going to punish you for it.
Well, you called it. We got ourselves a Shen in the top lane. Steve goes back to a good old tank for himself, but one that we have seen exploding in popularity as well. So a lot of global pressure available on the side of Schalke. Vitality going all in on the damage and relying on the Braum for the disengage. Have to see how this one shakes out.
So much pick potential, so much skirmishing, and honestly, just so much carry threat on the side of Vitality when the 4 members of Vitality can do so much damage right now. Shook gets an early lead, he's going to be able to snowball. If Nukta gets an early lead, he's going to be able to snowball. And the same goes for Cabo. I mean, there are just so many threats, and this Sivir and these mid to late game team fights could be so impactful. I mean, Vitality just drafting a comp that, to be honest, spells to me full out aggression.
Yeah, well, if they put it on the back of Cabochard, we know that in the past he's been able to step up huge and deliver for his team, but they will need it in the clutch right here. Vitality, they might be fairly close in the standings to Schalke, but still, they need every point they can get. Been tying just about nearly every series. Biff and Sean's will shake hands to walk off as we get ready to kick off game number 1. I got a feeling this one is going to get pretty bloody, but if you guys think Vitality's got enough to take it away, hashtag VIT win is where you want to go. On the other hand, though, Schalke no fear. If you believe in Schalke, S04 win at LoL eSports is the place. We'll tally those, take a look at them a little bit later in game. I really like the way Schalke's rounded out their comp as well, Vedius.
I think that it is a very well-rounded comp. You've got nice pick potential, you've got decent siege, and you can see that the crowd is certainly hyped for these two teams going up against one another, and I think that this could be quite the explosive match.
Oh, indeed. The crowd is definitely signaling they want some early action. We load up onto the rip. Vitality versus Schalke kicking off. Unfortunately, they came for the wrong team.
Unfortunately, they are in the wrong region, I believe. But there we are. Right now, though, early game, if we're just thinking about lane swaps, Schalke typically want to go for that because you want to try and shut the Aurelia down as much as possible. However, if you go for standard lanes, Shen is actually a good matchup into the Aurelia early on, simply because his W can mitigate a lot of the trade potential that Aurelia has. And if you think that all of her damage comes from her He-10 style, the fact that you can taunt the initial burst alongside using the W, it just makes it so much easier to trade back and forth with that Aurelia. So Schalke, they have so many options right now, whether they go for standard lanes or just try to avoid it. And I'm a little bit worried for Cabo, to be totally honest. So Shook, very likely to be spending a lot of time in the top half of the map to make sure Cabo can get ahead.
Well, it looked like we're in for good old standard lanes, so not too much to worry about right now. As Rallis and Spraddle take their places very early down there in the bush to see if they can get a little bit early damage. A lot of poke available from this Nami Caitlyn lane. They actually step up really far forward here, and it's not been spotted by Vitality.
No, it has not. They've decided to move away from the cheese play, largely because Schalke recognize that Vitality are going to be going for those double Krugs, and Spraddle, he wants to try and interfere. He can do it by himself, and as long as he can just deny them some of the experience, that means that Rallis could get that slight CS advantage. But Vitality read the play. They're going to get to lane as per usual, and nothing too bad. And speaking of this bottom lane, again, very difficult for the Sivir Braum, simply because you are at a range disadvantage against this Caitlyn and Nami. The amount of poke from Nami is just so difficult to deal with, and also when you consider the sustain that Spraddle can provide, you can see why this matchup becomes quite obnoxious for Police.
Yeah, that's true. Although Braum was the original poker blocker, right? And on the other hand, you also have Sivir pretty much able to nullify the traps, but then, you know, if you get caught by a Nami bubble, it's trouble. I really want to focus, though, on the junglers this game, because when we have a standard lane matchup like this, with Shook coming back into this team, where is he going to move? What will his early game impact be? It's going to change so much for those standard lanes, especially when you're on something like a Nidalee.
It has to be the top half of the map. Cabochard has to be your main carry. Police and Kasing are just going to mainly be on wave clear duty in the bottom lane. While the laning phase will be rough, it's going to be even rougher for Cabochard. As you can already see, he's taken so much damage from Steve, who, while he's not going to be able to kill him, is going to make Cabo's life very difficult. And on this Aurelia, you want to be trying to get ahead. You want to snowball in this matchup. We saw in Challenger Series when Alfari brought it out, he had a 12-minute Trinity Force, and he made Shen look like a piece of paper. It was absolutely ridiculous, and if Shook can look to do the same thing, we start to see the vitality of old, where Shook gets Cabo ahead, Cabo runs away with the game, and, I mean, on this Aurelia, there's no better champion to do it with.
Yeah, well, there's Gilius on the early pressure, but he only takes a spear for his trouble. Shook doesn't actually follow him through, so no problem right there. However, do wind those timers up in the top lane for the 12-minute mark, see what we do get out of that. So, Police and Kasing trading it out a little bit further here. Steven Cabo, though, this one is really weird to watch a Shen matchup, because you just got like, oh, I'm just gonna trade right into the minions, trade you back and forth, grasp me and dying over and over again.
Shen is just a very safe top laner. He's someone that you can't necessarily kill, but he's not likely going to be able to kill you. As much pressure as he puts down, he doesn't really have a window where he can like 100-0 you or suddenly insta-kill you. And because you're always playing against that, it means you can look to play aggressive, but if you're a little bit too over-aggressive, it means you take a little bit too much damage and then you get forced back. So it's one of those matchups where, when in doubt, pick Shen. And fortunately, earlier on, the moment he joins in with that global pressure, it becomes that ultimate ninja party. But look at this, Shook already coming in for it.
Oh, he goes for the taunt, but he's got the spear on, flashing forward, and Shook nails first blood.
Shook's back, ladies and gentlemen. He gets the first kill up in the top half of the map. Gilius, he wants to try and respond, but Shook is way too fast for Gilius to be able to capitalize. And that is the start that we were expecting. Cabochard getting ahead over the Shen, Shook setting Cabochard up for success, and Steve, he just didn't read the play fast enough. Yeah,
Steve, as a result, has to spend his teleport, gets back to lane with only a pair of boots and a Ruby Crystal to show for his trouble. So, and he picks up the pink ward, definitely not going to try and give another opening to Shook. Meanwhile, back in the bottom, Kasing is taking a whole lot of punishment after stepping on the trap. Rallis and Spruttle, knowing that the jungler was up topside, just continuing to push back and forth. Steve, though, he's down a level here to Cabo. This is starting to spell trouble for the Schalke side.
The thing is, Rallis and Spruttle need to keep this up for as long as they can, because the moment... oh no, sorry, Vitality. They need to try and punish this window right now where Rallis and Spruttle are constantly overextended, simply because the moment Steve hits 6, it's going to become nigh impossible to gank that lane because of the threat that Steve is always going to turn that gank around. And Shook, right now, he's just not interested. All he cares about is just shutting down the Shen and saying, hey, even if you do teleport in, you're going to be so low, you're going to be so weak that my bottom lane's going to be able to kill you anyway.
For the time being, still sitting in level 5, not able to get in there and make any changes, but the two dual lanes haven't really gone at each other apart from Poke, and it has been Police and Kasing that have been bearing the brunt of the damage. 10 CS differential to the Caitlyn. Rallis is really stepping it up, and you know, in standard lanes, we know his CS tends to be better. It's definitely shining through now as Cabochard jumps in onto Steve, and he's able to walk away from him for free.
So Fox picking up the teleport. Something that we see a lot of in mid laners, and a mid lane that we haven't really discussed very much of, but both these champions, I'm absolutely fine with running the teleport. Both can be that split push threat. Both work very nicely in setting up the flank rise. Can be a little bit risky at times. But when you consider the potential for a Fox flank in with a Shen ultimate, that makes for one scary looking bird that's going to be covered in a massive plate of armor.
You draw some very, very scary pictures, Vedius. Shook going up and really tailing Gilius here. On the hunt, if you will. Making sure that there isn't anything happening up in that top lane that he isn't aware of, but he does take a rove down towards the mid. Is he interested in checking out Fox? I don't think so. Right now, it's just all about the counter jungle. Shook coming right back to the LCS just like nothing ever changed.
I love watching Shook play Nidalee. He just plays it so aggressively. This is exactly how you should be playing the Nidalee. always in the enemy jungle. You have such good jungle clear that you can just steal things away. And look at Gilius. He's left with nothing. Even though he's still doing pretty good in the farm department, the fact that Shook has this kill lead is going to make Gilius' life so difficult.
I got 15 gold off the ward, but you're right. It's hard for him to really get involved. Does find his own red buff, but he's spotted out by just about every ward there. Back towards that mid, Nukeduck has just been casually surviving against Fox. And, you know, Rise, being the late game terror that he was, and, you know, now maybe a little bit different, of course, how does this really stack up for the both teams in the later stages of the game when you look at a champion like Swain? What does he bring to a fight that Rise doesn't, and vice versa? Constant
sustain and constant AoE team DPS. That's something that, while Rise can do a lot of damage to a single target, I mean, when he's overcharged, he has decent AoE, but he's very much about locking down that single target and just bursting them out. Look at Shook, he's the one getting aggressed on. Yeah, and you got Steve coming to the rescue. He wants a little revenge. Shook found Gilius, or Gilius found him. And Gilius is jumping forward, needs another auto. He gets it, but he might pay with his life. That's gonna be a return fire. Meanwhile, Steve getting a little hyphy with Kasingan Police, and they've got to back out. Oh, the surprise ninja party ends up getting broken up by the turret of Vitality right there. Gilius just stood in it. I mean, yeah. He took like 3 shots without moving. The thing is, he thought that Steve was going to be able to get the kill, forgot that Steve's Q was changed, and that he couldn't actually secure that one out. Oh, now you're actually seeing a bit of an exchange in the mid. All right, we'll talk about holding somebody in place. Fox is in Rune Prison, and half his health bar is gone. And it's back again. Yeah, welcome to Swain. But yeah, that was a good collapse coming out from Gilius. Unfortunately, he tunneled a little bit too hard on the kill when he didn't necessarily need to, because you had 4 members strong in the bottom half of the map. You could have looked to take that tier 1 turret in the bottom lane, or even looked to set up a dive. But unfortunately, you aggressed for the kill, and it ends up being a 1-for-1. Yeah, and not only that, you give Cabochard free farm up top. Let's take a look at how it happened again, because Gilius gets a pretty good catch on things to start. Yeah, unfortunately, the Krugs have already been aggroed, so there's a slight delay on when Gilius is actually able to jump over the wall. He goes to the flash, but really good heal from Shook buys him a little bit more time, which ends up resulting in the 1-for-1. And then it's just a little bit too greedy. Shook was nowhere near enough health to be able to turn around and stop any potential turret take or dive. And honestly, just over-aggression from Schalke backfire. Teleport coming in, though, for Nukeduck. Talk about aggression. Another one's going to be matched by Steve. And this is going to be Spraddle caught up, but Steve is there to the rescue. Kasing jumps back. Nukeduck securing the kill. And all of a sudden, it's a party in the bot lane. Everyone's invited, but Spraddle has to go home early. Fox did not have his teleport available because he'd already used it earlier on in the laning phase. Nukeduck, really good flash to secure that kill down onto Schalke. And Vitality, they're currently leading at 3-1 in kills. Really good start for them, especially on this Rise, who wants to get his items completed as quickly as possible. Well, we wanted an action-packed game, Vedius, and it looks like we are definitely getting it. Schalke Vitality certainly delivering. 1,000 gold separating these teams at the 10-minute mark. Gilius going to try his luck on the Cloud Drake to clear it away. Give Schalke a little bit of extra movement speed, be lighter on their feet, and try to avoid the ganks next time. Yeah, certainly seems to be the case. Cloud Drake, we did have a lot of earlier on in the day. Very cheeky, I can sing. Nice interrupts coming out from him, but honestly, just good collapse coming out from Vitality, using that double teleport to their advantage. Setting up the play in the bottom. They knew that Steve didn't have his ultimate, and that meant that making a play in the bottom half of the map was a lot safer. This is something that we discussed earlier that you always have to be very mindful of, because if you want to go for that 1v1, well, it's not actually a 1v1, is it? Because there's always the risk of the surprise ninja party. To be honest, the moment that party starts going, there's no way you're going to stop it. Yeah, there really is no party like a surprise ninja party is there, Vedius. But Steve will have a little bit of time before, well, I guess his ultimate's up, so he can come back anytime he wants. Really doesn't stop this game, that's for sure. Taking a look at that bot lane, though, it has been clear that Rawlez has been getting a lot of bully on. Just stopping Police from getting a whole lot of farm, and you know, his Cole is going to help him out a little bit, but that's going to take a while before it pays off. Meanwhile, the tower is going to fall, though, and this is going to be the first of the game over to Schalke, freeing them up to move around the map. Police realized that Gilius is in the bottom half of the map the moment the Drake was taken, which meant that both Police and Kasing had to play more defensively. They didn't have the vision control on the bottom half of the map, and they already knew that Shook was concentrating on getting Cabo ahead, so without the support from their jungler, without any real vision, there was always the potential risk of a dive coming out from Schalke, so they just had to abandon the turret. Regardless though, Vitality still hold on to the gold lead, and if they get this kill, this could swing it even further in their favor.
Shook steps up, he takes the tower shot, but they're just zoning Steve away at the moment. Meanwhile, Spraddle and Kasing are busy fighting over wards, and this jungle is being annexed by Schalke. Got Vitality though answering up on the top side with this tower. They're going to start to get some more gold back, and they're already in the lead, so this just extends it a bit more.
Certainly does. Look at this. Two-man roam though from Spraddle and Gilius. That's going to force Nukeduck back, who doesn't really have the mana to clear away the minion wave, but fortunately Kasing has also come to provide support, as well as Shook continuing his deep vision in Schalke's half of the jungle and just honestly continuing his relentless aggression.
Both of these teams have pretty much been living on each other's side of the map right now. There just hasn't been a break in the action back and forth. A ton of ward coverage for Schalke, glittering the Vitality jungle. Vice versa on the top side. You'd have thought this was a lane swap game.
But this is it, because Schalke, their interest is actually getting Raz and Spraddle ahead. They know that they have the stronger 2 versus 2, and they want to try and run away with that as much as possible, whereas Shook, he's just abandoned the bottom lane. He realized that it's a lost cause, and his investment was basically into getting Cabo ahead. And for the first time in a long time, it honestly feels like Cabo is looking like a terror right now.
Yeah. 2 items into his Triforce, he's going to pick himself up, Glimpse of the Void, give him extra trading power against Steve. And if he can keep him locked up and prevent him from teleporting in, well, that could be a very different story for the 2v2 down in the bottom side. Schalke kind of doubling in on things, and there is a little bit past your 12-minute mark, Vedius, but the Trinity Force comes in.
At 13.5 minutes, very early on into the game, and now that Shen needs to be very mindful. Hasn't had a chance to complete his Sunfire Cape just yet, and with such a big item completed on that Aurelia, this is really where the matchup can snowball in Cabo's favor. The question is he going to be able to capitalize on it, because there's a big minion wave going to be hitting his turret. After that, Steve, he's going to have to go back to base, pick up his next few items, and then he's basically just going to do his best to avoid the Aurelia at all costs.
Yeah, and that pretty much is exactly what Cabo wants. He knows he can march down the top lane and demand attention from everybody on the team. This is Schalke really doubling down on what they can do with their AD carry. But they're going to have a scary late game. The question is, how long are they going to get there?
Well, this is it. The Swain is terrifying once he completes his 2 major items, but so is the Rise. And in all honesty, I feel like both teams actually have quite the powerful late game. The only ones really falling off are the Elise and the Nidalee, who, to be honest, have done a great job of exerting early pressure in both halves of the map, as we've been discussing. So I honestly think the big deciding point will be the impact of the Shen and the impact of the Aurelia. Can Schalke make use of this global pressure to build themselves up a lead, or is Cabo going to become this unstoppable split pusher that Schalke have no real answer for?
Well, only time will tell. As Gilius heads down towards this bottom side looking for Nukeduck. Beatrice is on, never move! And I don't think he's going to. There comes the Cocoon. Teleport now. Can Nukeduck stay alive through it all? Cabo on the backside. In comes Steve. And they just turn their attention right around. It's still a 2v3, but Shook and Kasing are about to even those odds. Big Bra multi comes up. Police coming late to the party. Kasing, he gets the heal out, staying alive. Boomerang bouncing blades. Amazingly, nobody dies. But Rala is flashing forward early, just trying to get an extra kill, and that's going to be an ace in the hole, tanked by Police.
Oh my word, not a single person on either team dies. I actually cannot believe that happened, but Schalke, they want to try and get themselves the turret, but they don't have the minion wave to do it, so off the back of so many ultimates, so many summoner spells, no one ends up going down.
Yeah, and unfortunately, even the consolation prize is too heavy. The tower's not gone down. We still got 40 seconds on Ocean Drake. Schalke, they're going to remember this. They're going to go home hungry, and, well, they'll be wanting to eat soon. That's rough.
Oh, man. That all started with Nukeduck just being a little bit too over-aggressive in the bottom half of the map, and hang on a second, because we'll get back to that as the fan vote just came up. It is pretty much divided right now between Vitality and Schalke.
Yeah, that's a real close one for sure. It's rare that we see those two teams, or two teams in general, having that close of a matchup against one another, and even though Vitality are holding this lead at about 2,000 gold, it's still very, very close. Let's take a look at this again. Nukeduck was able to buy just enough time.
So interestingly, Vitality felt like that Nukeduck was dead, so the teleport came out from Cabochard a little bit late, but once they realized that he was actually surviving, they decided to commit to the play. Shook nearly gets the kill onto Gilius, but then Rales and Spraddle join the fight. Meanwhile, it's a 4 versus 3, unable to kill Fox, who, unfortunately for him, runs out of mana, but the action isn't over yet.
Yeah, they turn their attention to Cabochard, and once again, the party does not stop at all. Never Move is not going to connect, and in comes the wave. It gets blocked up by Kasing, but they can't stop the bubble, and the Braum will be sacrificed. Gilius sinks the Fangs in, and they're looking for Cabo. Jump up, jump down! Oh, they don't have enough! Just barely! That's a double kill. Over to Gilius now, and Steve will fall to the Spear of Shook before Nuke Duck as well. It is a 1 for 3, and a triple kill to the Spider.
Vitality tried to force a play on the bottom half of the map when they did not have their AD carry anywhere near. Now Schalke find the fight that they want. Now they're going to be able to take this tier 2 turret in the bottom lane, and Schalke, they got everything that they could want.
Possibly get themselves a lead off the back of this. The tower is just barely going to fall. Shook is trying to hold it, but nothing doing with Police bailing out of the situation. Still very close in the gold game after that's all said and done, as Fox is back here to try and stop Police from pushing in on the wave. The action just does not stop though. Kasing, the bubble's up, the cocoon's on. The CC train is so real, but he avoids the trap, gets the knock up, and Schalke once again have to walk away. Spiderling's tanking the spears.
Wow. Schalke not quite have enough mana to commit to any kills right there. But fortunately for Police, he also has the spell shield to get away from that tricky situation. Now Shook, he's continuing his aggression.
Oh, the cat wants some fish. It looks like he's gonna get it, flashing forward. It's actually Police that manages to take him out. Some much needed gold in his pocket, and that ought to be Ocean Drake.
Okay, Police, I praise your efforts, but I felt like the flash was a little bit over excessive. Didn't quite need to burn that summoner spell to guarantee the kill, but now Steve, he needs to be very mindful of his position because he's going up against Nuke Duck.
Yeah, that's a problem. He's gonna have to burn his dash to get away. Steve's got no summoners left to get out of here, and he just keeps on throwing the magic. Nuke Duck grabs himself another. They get the tower, or rather they get the dragon, they get the kill, and this game just keeps on swinging.
So let's just backtrack a little bit as Cabo goes to the 1v1 against Fox, and he doesn't realize how many people are joining this party. As look at Shook, he tries to come in from the flank, quickly realizes that they're in a massive numbers disadvantage, and Police, he's just sitting in the mid lane, so actually very smart from Schalke to force this play when they knew that they would have a clear numbers advantage, and they knew that there was no way for their damage dealer and Police to be able to turn this fight around. So great collapse coming out from Schalke. It enabled them to get a bunch of kills, but then they went and threw a bunch away anyway because Spraddle ended up getting caught out, Steve ended up getting caught out, and that enabled Vitality to get that tier 1 turret in the bottom lane, and it's constantly allowing Police to slowly farm his way back into the game in the mid.
Yeah, Shook meanwhile pulls off a very risky steal of the blue buff, and Nuke Duck keeps on pushing up topside. All said and done, I mean, look at where we are 20 minutes in. With all the crazy kills, we're within 2,500 gold of each team. It's still 2 towers to 2. So Vitality have the edge in that regard, but it has been a really close affair, and they are very liberal on their summoner spells.
They certainly are. I mean, just having a look across the boards for both sides right now is Gilius. He has the flash to make that potential pick if he wants to go for it. Fox having his flash is also very important as Kasing now. He's been caught out.
He's going to throw down the Unbreakable. He's fine for now, but the trap line is there. Rallas has his sights set on the mid tier 1. The only outer still remaining on this map right now. It's been blown wide open by the constant war between these two teams. Both of them want to walk away with the 2-0. The ties, unsatisfying. Vitality's tasted them all too often. Even though they feel that they may not be up to it, we did hear a little bit about how, you know, with the way the team is performing at the moment, a tie is not a bad result, but when do you start getting hungry for more?
I mean, this is it. Given Shook's performance so far, I just feel like he's just slotted back into the team, and already Vitality seem to be playing more like a cohesive unit. In terms of the bottom lane synergy, they had a rough matchup and they were put behind, but in terms of where they're supposed to be on the map, Vitality are doing a good job of executing this 1-3-1 and just allowing Police to slowly work his way back into the game.
Yeah, and it's proof that they're challenging Schalke the way they are right now, that they do seem like a team that has gotten some much needed cohesion. The gold lead speaks for itself at the moment, even if, like we said, it's a bit close. Stopping the siege into a Kaelin, it's difficult to pull that off, but they're doing it right now, and you know, maybe this is what Vitality was missing all along. You can pick up strength or what you see as a strong player, but if you throw away what you had as a team, that's not going to help you.
Exactly that. And I like what Schalke's doing right now, matching the 1-3-1. and actually sending Fox to try and deal with Nuked out, because as we've seen, if Steve goes in the 1v1 when he has no magic resist, he very quickly gets pushed out of lane. Now Shook wants to try and help out his top laner once more. If he can get another kill down onto Steve, it's basically going to become impossible for Steve to be able to deal with this level 13 Irelia.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous how much they are going in this game. Teleport's being burned. In comes Cabo. Glacial Fissure catching Gilius. The Shen's coming to join the party. He'll come just a little bit too late, but now a teleport from Fox means it's a 5v5. ARAM down the middle, boys. Kasing will be the first casualty of war as Rales manages to pick him up right on the front. Fox flashing forward. Ace in the hole. Blocked by Shook. Cabo's in the back. Rales is down. Shook manages to pick him up. Goes on a killing spree. And Steve answers right on back, taking out his opposite number. Nukeduck's gonna fall. And this game is just so bloody.
Unbelievable that Schalke were able to turn that one around. But this is what we were discussing early on in Champion Select, where Schalke just have the stronger team fighting. When it comes to 5v5, this Sivir is not at a point where she can actually offer huge amounts of team fight damage. This Irelia is finding it so hard to get onto Rales and onto the backline to actually shut him down. And on top of that, Cabo just doesn't have the damage to shut down Fox. He stayed alive throughout that entire fight. And Schalke just have such a beefy frontline that if Vitality try to force these 5v5s, it becomes so easy for Schalke to turn them around.
I'm listening to you, Vedius, but that was close. That spear was 1 pixel. Whew. All right. We get a break for just a second. We got 3-2 in towers now. Schalke having the spoils of war. They're so close in the gold game, even with Vitality holding this lead, but every time somebody on either team moves, it's instantly answered. Equal and opposite reaction. This game is Newton's Law in a nutshell.
Certainly seems to be the case, and we are going to get a replay of that. So have a look at the positioning of Schalke and where they try to make this play. Deep ward in the mid lane, tries to go for the collapse, but Rales is able to get to the safety of his turret. This is where Vitality overcommit a little bit because they actually go for the dive, even under the Shen ultimate, and then Fox can just TP into a point where he's just free to get all this damage down. They take out one of the big frontliners of Vitality, and now they're really left without any tanks. So that allows Fox to just dive in, get all this healing back, soak up a lot of the damage, and even though Cabo is able to get onto the backline and enable his team to get the kill down onto Rales, it just isn't enough because there's just way too much tankiness and frontline that Vitality just cannot break through.
No, and that's really been a lot of their undoing in some of these fights. However, Shook still managed to get himself a pretty solid number of kills. Some of them cleanups, but also the early gank stepping in. Gilius on the other side, he's also been doing quite a lot, 100% kill participation in this game that is not lacked for action as we approach the 25-minute mark. Fox up on the top side, pushing his way into the tower, but he's met by Nukeduck again. It really has been mirrored on every single lane.
Certainly has. Now I'm just keeping my eyes on what Schalke decide to do next, because even though the gold is not in their favor, they still seem to have more of a grasp on this game. And they are ahead in turrets. They picked up 2 in the bottom lane, 1 in the mid. Cloud Drake is alive, and right now neither team putting much prioritization on it, but it should be a pretty easy objective for them to take and will likely open up for the next dragon of the game. So still an objective you want to pick up if you can. And interestingly, Cabo's actually decided to get Wit's End. Now recently that did have a cost reduction. It made the item a little bit more efficient, and against the amount of magic damage that is on the side of Schalke, it does make a bit of sense. It also increases your DPS ever so slightly, given that it does give you that extra bit of attack speed and on-hit effect. But we'll have to see how things move forward, picking up that somewhat greedy itemization when he could have just gone full tank from this point.
Well, speaking of itemization, you just saw it right there. Gilius got himself a Hextech one. That's going to be Nukeduck, though, is caught up by the wave. The bubble won't connect, but Schalke, when they go in, they bring everyone to the party here, and Nukeduck is all alone. Gilius is unstoppable. Gonna trade it for Cloud Drake and tower damage.
And now they have invested 5 members into the top half of the map, which means that Cabo, he wants to try and respond by getting a turret of his own, but because they have the numbers advantage, Schalke feel confident enough to go for a 26-minute Baron.
Oh man, this is so thematically appropriate. He picks on a proto belt, strap on that jetpack because this game is blasting off. Gilius, the rest of the team, they've got to leave though. In comes the Glacial Fissure, Kasing's buying time, but in comes Cabo. Baron helps shut down. Oh, it's Shook who gets Gilius in the back of it all, and Steve takes out Cabo Shard. Now they are blinking low health bars, but they are on the chase. Flashes, autos, taking spears, nobody cares. Police, they're hunting him down, but not before Rawlins is gonna fall. The 80 carries are fodder this game, and it ends up being a 2-for-2. And we're not even done yet. A teleport in for Nuke Duck. Can they get out in time? It looks like they'll walk it out.
Oh my word, I cannot believe that again, a fight went so back and forth between these two teams. It all started with Cabo getting caught out instantly. I mean, the play was smart from Vitality, just so risky. Cabo, he didn't have many wards to TP2, but the fact that he's teleporting right outside the Baron pit when there is so much pick potential on the side of Schalke means that Vitality were just asking to kill their top laner, and he didn't decide to go full tank. It takes time to stack up that magic resistance, and unfortunately for him, he ends up getting punished for it. So look, I mean, there are 3 traps behind him. He has nowhere to run. He eats the cocoon, straight into another trap, straight into a taunt, straight into a never move, but then just keep an eye on Shook, who's just constantly sitting on the backline and looking for traps to land, gets to slow down onto Rales, and Fox is forced to burn his flash, and then Shook just goes in, gets himself a kill, and gets out. And you're seeing, just as you mentioned earlier, Shook felt like he never left.
Yeah, and it's starting to show. Vitality looking like a stronger team with them in this first, but it is just oh so close with 3,000 gold separating the teams. Yeah, we got just about everything. Fights back and forth, and yeah, there'd be ward kills. The only thing we're really missing is good old Infernal Drake. Everyone's talking about fighting instead of taking on those objectives. Gilius getting hot, but he's got the team at his back, and there's a teleport coming in. Say the wave, it's coming. Fox around the side, never move, but maybe it's him that can't go anywhere. Throws on the Zhonya's Hourglass, buys enough time for the team to turn right back on around. And only Police bites the dust.
Great teleport flank coming out from Fox. He knew that he had the Zhonya's available, so even if he became the target focus, he could just bite enough time for the rest of his team to join in and turn that fight around. Fantastic execution coming out from Schalke. They get themselves another kill, but that's all they're going to get off the back of that.
Yeah, that's for sure. Vitality looking now to try and force their way up the mid, but nothing this game has been given away. Fought over every single inch of this rip. 29 minutes, 9 kills, 2-11 in favor of Schalke, but the gold lead still in favor of Vitality by a very, very small amount.
It certainly is. But to be fair to Vitality, they've held on to this gold lead largely due to the insane advantage that was built up by Shook early on, and Cabo also sitting at a pretty monumental lead in terms of the CS. But also that global gold that Vitality have gotten themselves from the extra tower that they were able to pick up. Or better yet, perhaps keep alive up in the top lane would be more apt, as is largely a part of why they have this gold advantage. And because of that, that's why these fights are so close. That if that outer tower gone, you'd still see the even gold, but it's just such an even game.
Well, Schalke looking keep the vision control here and collapse on to Cabo Shard, who's still holding his flash, but he is going to be able to walk away as this top tower will finally fall. Let's take a look and check in on some of our items, because 30 minutes in, we've hit late game, you know, triple items rather, I should say, on Nuke Duck. He's a pretty fearsome champion at this point, but as we saw, Fox does not die easy. Of course, on the other side, we're starting to get 3-item Caitlyn, 3-item Sivir, the Phantom Dancer choice to try and take some reduced damage and stay alive more in these fights. Police has definitely had a tough job of it.
Certainly has. I mean, he now has the 3-item spike, which means that his teamfight damage is going to be pretty ridiculous. If he can land those ricochets, but because he's such short range, that's not really what you want against a Swain who is constantly going to be sitting on your face. And to be honest, if you're just going to shorten the gap, it's going to make it easier for Swain to close that.
Gilius has no fear, man. He runs straight forward, jumps in with the Proto Belt, forces Police to defensively on the hunt, just constantly harassing and making sure that they can't use their tools the way they want to. Vitality might have this gold lead, but the map right now, it's being dictated by Schalke.
Certainly is, and just have a look at the vision that they've set up around this Baron. Really is the big point that they want to fight over as Rales. He takes a bit of a spear to the face, but because of the sustain that SpraDL can provide, he's going to be fine. And 3 items now finished for Rallis as well means that he is one scary Caitlyn, but you're starting to see the disadvantages of Swain, where it becomes very hard for you to actually start a fight. You need that TP flank if you want to be the primary engager, or you need someone to be caught grossly out of position.
Well, Schalke are hoping to do just that to Vitality. Using this Baron to try and bait out another fight. A couple of blue trinkets, one used, is going to stop for just a couple of seconds. Schalke might have started. 15 seconds on the next dragon. It will be Ocean, not nearly as important as trying to get the fights. Never move coming in onto Cabo Shard, but no one's there to collapse. And Fox, he does get Rune prisoned. They're on the chase here, but they're taking a lot of damage, and Nuke Duck Ace in the hole hits him, but he's got a big shield. I'll back off for now. It's a tense moment in the mid lane as both teams are just trying to fight to control the ground.
And neither team really pulling the trigger right there. Largely because no one has any solid hard engage, but if you just have a look at some of the side waves, big minion wave going in favor of Vitality right now, and as long as they just keep poking back and forth, that minion wave could actually do a lot of work for Vitality moving forward.
Yep. Nuke Duck about to get his splash back. Let's see if they try to jump in and start a fight. Kasing is the only one even near range. And this actually is going to be Vitality moving, or starting to move towards his bottom side. Schalke might pull the trigger finally. There's a back. Nuke Duck's not involved. He's got his teleport. He's going to start using it. This is going to be tense.
How do they get through the trap line, though? I mean, Kasing is the first, but he's completely split off from his team.
Yeah, they stopped the Baron for a second, though. Kasing does jump forward. That's a lot of damage. In comes the Fissure, going to knock up Steve, and Fox is on the front line. In comes the wave. Cabo Shard, he's got to flash away as an exhaust hits him straight in the face, and now Police being hunted down, but they have started to turn it around. Gilius, a little bit low. Everyone blinking health bars, but Schalke do not get this Baron. There's still a wave knocking at their front door.
And now they have to figure out what they do because they're on the back foot. They're running out of summoner spells, and Shook, he just wants to keep up the aggression.
They've caught him right in between everything here. Nevermove isn't going to connect. There's a teleport now being spent by the Cabo Shard, and they can't quite get enough, but this might be Vitality turning for Baron.
It could very well be. Remember that Foxy does have the teleport available. Rallis and SpraDL still have plenty of health. Gilius is really the worry right now. If Vitality can stop him from getting into the pit, Vitality can secure themselves the Baron.
Well, Gilius has had Baron steals before, but not today. Shook secures it for his team, and now the fight is on. Cabo Shard taking out the spider in the back of it all, and he jumps onto Rallis and finishes him off. That's going to be 2 kills for 1, and absolutely worth as they keep on trading, trying to end the day here. Fox will fall. Cabo Shard, they will seal the deal. A double kill to the Aurelia, and it's mid lane time.
Vitality not only get themselves the Baron, but they get themselves 4 clean kills. If we were in doubt that who was in control of this game, well, Vitality answered that doubt for us. Very clean execution from them, and right now, 7-1 and 4 for Shook. Cabo Shard picked himself up a triple kill, and Vitality, they want to keep pushing this forward.
Why do they ever get rid of him? Shook has been massive this game. Vitality looking such like a clean team at the moment. They will get themselves the first inhibitor of the game, 35 minutes in, and it has been action all the way through, but Vitality have broken into a comfortable lead.
Absolutely insane how much of an impact Shook has been able to have on his debut return to the European LCS. And have a look at how this all plays out. Gilius tries to flash over the wall, tries to secure himself the Baron, but it's not enough. And Rallis, we talked about how he'd taken a bit too much damage beforehand. All of SpraDL's regen had gone into keeping Gilius healthy, and that meant that SpraDL was easy pickings for Cabo, who, once he then rejoins the rest of his team who are dealing with the front line of Schalke, are quickly able to clean up and pick themselves the 4-for-1.
Yeah, really the only one living to tell the tale there was SpraDL, and that is not going to help nearly enough. So this game just starts to get out of control for Schalke, and Shans could not be happier at his team's performance. A team that has had so many struggles from when they were considered a European super team. This season, no longer. You know, sitting in the middle of the table or on the lower end of the middle, if they can knock a win out today after so many draws, tide may turn once again in their favor.
Well, I mean, a 3-pointer here would put them ahead of Splice, who have already completed their games for today, so this would be pretty monumental for Vitality. Still trying to secure their playoff spotters. Kasing taking a bit of poke, but now this is where things start to get a little bit rough for Vitality. You have to get through the trap line without taking too much poke from the Caitlyn.
Yeah, not
You have to also deal with Fox, who always has that never move available to catch anybody that might be out of position. And Schalke just have so much single target damage that Vitality, with their short range AD carry and mid laner, may find it pretty difficult to break into the base of Schalke.
That's true. It's a dangerous game to try and play the spell shield, the traps, because you never know when something else is about to catch you.
Exactly.
So Schalke are definitely hoping to try and snap that shut. But with the super Baron empowered minions, I should say, and the 4-1 right now, Steve has shown that he's not really been able to tango with this Aurelia, and it's no wonder. 3, 3, and 4. He's hit himself 4 items with the Ghost Blade. And he's facing down Steve, who just has not had the same impact on this. This is going to be an easy tower take for cabochard.
To be fair to Vitality, they played very smartly around the Steve ultimate, and he just wasn't able to exert the same sort of global pressure. Schalke, they didn't really try too often to force plays with this Shen, and every time they did, Cabo just built up an even bigger CS advantage, and now, with this big minion wave, they're committing.
Oh, and they jump right onto Gilius. He's gone before the wave can even come in. Spraddle just too late on the draw. Steve's got to back away as the second inhibitor tower gets blown apart. It's going to be Vitality now moving their way into another inhib. Still pressure on the bottom side. Baron might be over, but it just does not matter. They start marching forward for the Nexus turrets, and that is a fat wave of minions that they are sending Schalke's way.
And look at this, they might be going for the collapse onto Fox, who he's left the safety of his turret.
Oh, on the hunt, and they are indeed jumping for him. It's Steve who comes in for the help, but he's just going to feed himself right on over. That's just enough time with the Zanya's Hourglass, and Police might have to back away, but cabochard is simply too massive. Shook with a godlike kill, a double to the Aurelia, and I think that's going to be it.
Vitality, they're going to clean up the rest of Schalke. Cabo's going to get himself the triple kill, and Vitality are going to take 1-0 in this first game of this series.
38 minutes and Vitality break it wide open. GG, boys. Shook is back.
Shook is back. And what a debut return for the jungler of Vitality. Really impressive stuff coming out from them. And, I mean, wow. What do we say? 8-1 and 7 on that Nidalee. Just going to quickly have a look at his damage dealt, because, yeah, he matched the Aurelia's damage dealt. I mean, yeah, that was pretty crazy.
That's definitely going to be a hard one to call player of the game, because he wasn't the only one stepping up, but he made that team look so much better in the early game. And I kind of was surprised we got standard lanes. But let's kind of take a step-by-step look through it again, because there was so much in that game. There was so much to it. We got to kind of rewind back to the beginning. Let's take a look at how the first blood actually went down.
Because this was actually very important for Vitality, and we talked a lot about where junglers would be investing their resources, and Shook realized that he needed to get Cabo ahead, and by getting this first blood onto himself, that allowed Shook to get ahead. So he was getting a lot of deep vision down, but that didn't dissuade Gilius, who was matching that sort of aggression. He was also matching in terms of the vision, matching in sort of lane pressure, but the difference was Gilius was investing his time in the bottom lane, and Shook was investing his time in the top lane. But because Shook was spending so much time, that did allow at least to get a couple of kills across the map.
Well, more than a couple. I mean, there was that big triple play that happened down on bottom. We'll take a look at it as well. And, this is just showing the difference in where they prioritized in the early game.
I mean, Cabo, yes, he was able to get a lot of farm and a lot of resources, but you trying to 1v1 Fox is so risky. And, I mean, the big problem in this play was the fact that Vitality trying to force a fight when their AD carry was still in the mid lane. Schalke read the map so well. They identified where Vitality was sending their members, and they just punish Vitality for it. And off the back of this, Gilius gets himself a bunch of kills. And to be honest, at this point, I feel like getting those kills onto Gilius might have been a big mistake, because if you could have got them onto the Caitlyn, could have got them onto the Swain, perhaps that could have swung a lot of these fights because of the items, but that one's a bit of a push to call. So it was just, the big thing there was the fact that Schalke demonstrating that they can punish very easily the mistakes of their opponents, and Vitality still a little bit too overconfident at times.
Yeah, and it kind of manifested itself when they, left a big opening and allowed Schalke to really push in at that 22-minute mark, and it was just so back and forth. It was so tug of war, but this fight, they didn't need to take it.
They just overcommit for a fight underneath the enemy turret, and Vitality at this point, they're just forced to disengage, and trying to disengage against this lineup of Schalke, who have so much single target crowd control, they can just go from one member to the next, and you can see they started with Kasang, they went on to Nuke Duck, then their focus becomes Cabo Shard because they're trying to peel them off of the AD carry, and Vitality just have no real answer for it because their team composition is very much about skirmishing, about the back and forth, trying to pick a target off, and if you commit to these hard 5v5 team fights, sometimes it doesn't work in your favor.
Yeah, and Schalke, you know, despite a very action-heavy game, I mean, it made me hungry too, so I agree there with Spraddle, but you know, you've got to kind of go back to the drawing board and think, what did we do wrong? What did we overcommit on? And where do we shut this Vitality team down? Because this is not the Vitality we saw for the last 4 weeks.
No, it is not.
It's transformed.
It seems to be all because Shook has returned. Who would have thought that?
Well, maybe there's something else that happened. We might be giving him too much credit here.
That could very well be the case, but to me, it just seems like a mentality shift. The fact that now Mighty Bear, perhaps communication issues, it's difficult to say without being in a Vitality lineup, but it just seems now to me, just like we saw from a lot of teams, like with the introduction of Freeze and Kikis' impact on G2, just certain players, Yellowstar and Fnatic, just certain players coming in and just being that glue that holds the team together. And regardless of the mechanical skill, it just adds more value that you don't necessarily see.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of intangible benefits. I mean, Game 2, I can't wait to see how it's going to shake out. But for now, we got to take a quick look at the action happening over on EU LCS 2, where H2K and Origin is currently in progress.
Odoamli following after. The boomerang doesn't land, and all of Origin get are alive. A couple summoners burn, but that's absolutely fine.
I really like what we see from Origin today. Honestly, they understand. Don't need to go over aggressive on anything. Like, secure these dragons. Then we start moving over to Baron. We still have the full control of the map. H2K literally want to just farm.
Yeah.
So it's by no means over yet, because the game is still very close. But Origin keep getting more and more advantages, and we might have the big turning point like once Elder Drake spawns.
Yeah.
H2K wants to get to that point in the game with even more scaling on their side. But now Origin have the sights on the mid-tier 2 tower after picking up that Cloud Drake. So this is one of these games where the RNG on dragons is really annoying. Imagine if Origin was sitting on like double Infernal into a mountain with these 4 Drakes.
Sure.
They would be so much more ahead now. Obviously Ocean does have a lot of value, but it's just not the same at this point in the game.
Yeah.
So that's obviously the RNG part of the dragons. That doesn't always favor you.
Yeah.
It favors H2K technically in this situation.
But the non-RNG part is, as soon as OG, if they manage to secure Elder Dragon, then you get even more damage on the damage over time. Here comes the poke, continuing out from Power of Evil. Really being on point with this game. I feel like I've said that time and time again, but it never stops being true.
Oh.
30 minutes into this one, middle tower goes down, and Origin are now trying to crack this base. They only have 1 minion wave here, so they may have to wait for the next one to deal meaningful damage to the towers. But with the full group of H2K, they can clear the waves real fast with Ryu.
Yeah, and low range Lucian doesn't really want to give too many hits on these towers. Tons of risk involved. Can do it if you push them back.
God.
I mean,
Everything's landing onto Ryu.
Power Weaver is 1-0-0 in this game, but he has so much impact. Fantastic game for him so far. Just landing skill shots left and right.
This is horrific. Like, as soon as one goes down, he just charges up another one. And pretty much, even a 50-50 land, like, he's still pushing out Ryu. Freeze has taken some hits now. He has to back away. And Origin, over time, will start taking down some of these towers. So as pushing the bot lane, he's going to be assisted by Ryu. I mean, Odoamli is not great at pushing out by himself, but 3 members committed to the bot side. OG will just take the middle and him at the tower. Amazing pops to the ultimate so he doesn't get locked up. And now Origin are knocking on the front door to take away the inhibitor.
H2K's communication is just broken completely. Committing 3 members to bot lane defense, easy for Origin to push in straight onto this inhib. This inhib is going to go.
Wow, looks like things are definitely heating up over there, but we got to take a quick break as Vitality and Schalke prepare for Game 2. So don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back in 3.5.